Oh, there it is.
All right, Erin, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. I call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Today is Monday, December 14th, 2020, and this is a regular meeting of the Chagrin Falls Village Council. Before we get started, just a reminder that if we lose members of council, we will spend about 20 minutes getting them reconnected. If we can't get them reconnected, we will have to put the meeting on pause and reschedule it. That has not happened yet, but I have to say it, and I know that we have members of the community who are watching maybe for the first time live, and I felt like I should just clarify if 2020 happens, we know what we're doing. Okay, on that note, Pledge of Allegiance.
I will bring it up.
To the flag of the United States of America, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There we go. Sorry. Thank you so much to Officer Nice and Chief Basic for the pledge. Roll call, please. Mr. Bloom.
Bernardo,
Here.
Evans, Grube,
Here.
Newell,
Here.
Rocky,
Here.
Rogoff,
Here.
Wyville. Here.
Can I please have a motion to excuse Mrs. Evans from tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Newell, second by
Second.
Rogoff. Roll call, please.
Bernardo,
Aye.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyville.
Aye.
Thank you. We received copies of the minutes from October 12th and November 9th. Do we have any changes to the October 12th minutes? Corrections, I should say, maybe not changes.
Nope.
Seeing none, I would like a motion to approve the minutes from October 12th, 2020.
So moved.
No.
Motion by
Second.
Rogoff, second by
Second.
Newell. I'm sorry. Everyone's in different spots. Roll call, please.
Bernardo,
Aye.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyville.
Aye.
And then any changes or adjustments to the November minutes, November 9th?
I didn't have any.
I don't have any.
None here.
Seeing none, can I please have a motion to approve the minutes from
So
November?
moved.
Second.
Motion by Newell, second by Rogoff. Roll call, please.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyville.
Aye.
Bernardo.
Aye.
Okay. Report of the mayor. Bill, you're on mute.
Thank you. I've got two items tonight. One, we have been getting increasing calls for a homeowner expansion, stormwater connection to the storm sewers, and on the part of some residents, a desire to actually put under drains in their yard and drain their yards into the storm sewers. And we are quite concerned about the overwhelming of our storm sewer capacity with these new connections. We've discussed this with our engineer, Mr. Lannon, and I would like Streets and Sidewalks to take up this question of possibly requiring future expansions of property to require some on-site, either detention or rain garden, or some means of looking at taking some of the increasing load off of our storm sewer. We're running into a huge need to replace the sanitary because they're leaking too much. And I don't want to get into a position where we have to go back and, resize and redo the storm sewers on top of that. So I'd ask if in the new year, Streets and Sidewalks could take up this question. I've talked to the watershed partners, and they're willing to meet with Streets and Sidewalks in the new year and help them. And I know CT is as well. I've spoken with our engineer and Craig Course, so that would be my first request.
Okay, yeah, I think Streets and Sidewalks would make sense. I talked to Mrs. Evans about it. I know she's comfortable working through that.
Okay.
That work for everybody else?
Yeah. In the second item I would defer my rest of my time to Jason Weisskopf, who has something to say tonight.
Oh, good.
Christie?
Yes, I'm working. Jason. I'm going to ask you to unmute and start your camera, please.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, welcome to our council meeting.
Chief, why are you looking so perplexed?
He's
I
concerned.
forgot to talk to you this morning, Chief.
You up to? What I want to know.
I'm so happy I'm in my own home and safe right now. Anyway, I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a few minutes today. Normally this time of the year, we talk about Officer of the Year. As you all are pretty much aware, the chief and I started the Officer of the Year program in 2016. The goal of that program is to basically recognize excellence in policing. Sorry, my hair's a little messed up. It's making me a little nervous here, but just kidding. So ordinarily, the chief and I have nothing to do with this process other than to, if there's a tie or if there's some other situation where the officers can't decide amongst themselves who should be the Officer of the Year. So this year's a little bit different. I felt compelled with the way this year has been going to nominate our chief, Amber Dasik, for Officer of the Year. I knew I was going to get that look. I knew she was going to be upset, but it's very well deserved. So in doing so, I removed myself from the process. I asked the sergeants to take up and be the selection committee, so there would be no issues if other officers were nominated. So I just want to take a few minutes to read what I wrote, basically my submittal to the sergeants for Chief Amber Dasik. So I'm going to try to look at you and read at the same time. This is pretty cool technology. All right, sergeants, as you all know, 2020 has been a truly difficult year. The COVID-19 pandemic and civil unrest throughout the country has dramatically affected the way we operate and how we interact with people on a daily basis. We've seen a spike in crime. We've planned and coordinated 3 Black Lives Matter rallies. Excluding the horrific incident in Minneapolis, the media's slanted reporting of police-involved shootings, use of force incidents throughout the country have undoubtedly affected the morale of our officers. Not to mention the various internal issues that we've had to endure since the beginning of the year. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary leadership. Since the inception of the Officer of the Year Award, this recognition has been presented to a deserving officer or sergeant. However, I generally believe that Chief Amber Dasik should be this year's recipient. Here's why. So ordinarily, a chief of police does not conduct criminal investigations, nor does a chief of police take a leading role in any major criminal investigation. For these specific inquiries, an outside law enforcement agency, usually state or county, is usually sought to lead the investigation for a multitude of reasons. However, Chief Amber Dasik spearheaded many significant departmental investigations. She spent countless hours and numerous days putting together solid cases for prosecution. Needless to say, her hard work has paid off. Chief Dasik had the foresight to make sure we had personal protective equipment to protect our officers even before the COVID-19 pandemic. During the early stages of the epidemic, she acted quickly to procure a large quantity of protective gear so we didn't have to scramble basically to find it. Without this gear, our officers may have fallen ill and potentially would have been in grave danger due to the exposure from dangerous drugs and people suffering from COVID-19. As you all know, 3 Black Lives Matter rallies were held in Sugar Falls over the summer. 2 of these gatherings were scheduled only days apart. Obviously, this is something we have never encountered in our law enforcement careers, especially in Chagrin Falls. These events were very stressful on all of us. I can tell you firsthand how difficult and time-consuming it is to plan a large-scale event with several possible outcomes. Chief Dasik supported me during the coordination of each rally. She made countless phone calls, worked by my side, and played a large part in making preparations. There is no question her participation played a key role in the success of each rally. More importantly, she displayed the quality of true leadership. Chief Dasik leads from the front. She insisted on being seen with the crowds instead of remaining a secure incident command post. Again, this is not normally what the chief of police does during this type of event. I can tell you firsthand, Chief Dasik's visibility was vital to keeping things peaceful in the first BLM rally in early June and the rest of the ones that we had. In fact, one of the participants attended Chagrin Falls schools. During their protest in front of Village Hall, this participant mentioned Chief Dasik's name. This participant described her as being a strong, honest, and fair woman. In addition, the participant told the crowd of protesters how proud she is of her hometown police department because of Chief Dasik's leadership. If that's not leadership, I don't know what is. Chief Dasik was adamant that our officers remain ahead of the training curve. We have participated in several hours of virtual training that covered many critical issues, such as use of force, duty to intervene, de-escalation, search and seizure, and bias-free policing. These topics, as you all know, have been problematic in many areas of the country, not in Chagrin Falls. During Chief Dasik's tenure, she's covered numerous shifts, has taken reports, investigated crimes, and has remained accessible to everyone. As most of you know, there's no ivory tower in our agency. Again, this is not a typical role of the chief of police. And finally, in all my years in law enforcement, almost 18, I have never known anyone who cares more about her police department and the community in which she serves. Chief Dasik shows it every day by being positive, approachable, and willing to do anything to help anyone. For the above reasons, I truly believe Chief Dasik deserves to be the 2020 Officer of the Year. Well, the good news is I wasn't the only one who agreed with this. So congratulations, Chief Amber Dasik, on being the 2020 Officer of the Year. Matt, that's your cue.
This is some trickery going on.
No, what's going
There
on?
it is.
H.
Oh, there we go. Oh,
I guess it's a good thing I forgot my phone today, huh? Is that how that worked
Perfect.
out?
It worked out perfectly.
Well, let me say this. First of all, you're in trouble.
Shocker.
But because I'm not supposed to be eligible for this. So
I
I am really appreciative, obviously, Jason, for the nomination. And I think it goes without saying that you and I are a team. And I think we've discussed this before, but if you fail, I fail. If you succeed, I succeed. So if I'm getting this award, your name should be on it too. I think I appreciate that you nominated me, but you should have nominated yourself. So thank you very much. Thank you to council for listening to that long puff up piece about me. It was a little long, but I appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And, you know, Jason's right. I do care about the department and I care about the community and just try to do the best I can. So thank you. And, you know, you're in trouble.
very well deserved.
Very well deserved.
Wondering why Matt was sitting here this whole time.
Jason did,
we go on,
Jason
I
did a
just-
wonderful job.
Thank
Before we go on, I just want to say, you know, community policing has been a big, you know, word this year. And I think when we look at community policing, what you just said, caring about the community, caring about your officers and putting them at the forefront of every decision that you do, every conversation that you have, it's what you do, it's who you exemplify, and it's why Chagrin Falls is incredibly lucky to have you on our team. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, well, thank you. I'm leaving now. Have a good meeting.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Jason.
everyone.
With that, it concludes the mayor's report.
No, it doesn't. Okay. So also in the mayor's report, we have a special guest from First Energy.
What?
We have Dean Hain here. He's our representative from First Energy.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot. Yes.
He is here to have a much anticipated conversation about fun without power. There he is. I see him in. Christy moved him over. She's so efficient, this Christy. I love her.
Like she knows what's going on.
She does. It's like she has an agenda and can anticipate us. Dean, if you want to turn on your, there you are. It's lovely to see your face and to meet you.
Likewise. Thank you.
So just so everyone knows, I sent Dean questions that came in from council that we found on Facebook that people emailed me directly. So he has had some time to maybe do some research so we could really have the conversation we were hoping to have as a community. So what happened in November and December? We had some storms.
Okay, well, thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it. If we don't have the answers for you tonight, we will get them. If I could just mention, I've been with First Energy approximately a little over 30 years. Been with CEI only less than 6 months. Part of that, mostly Ohio Edison. Same type of work, similar work, deal mostly with commercial industrial customers. The area is a little different, that's for sure. And these past 2 storms kind of prove that and what happened. So as you know, November 15th, one of the big storms was a windstorm. We had approximately 140,000 customers out throughout the CEI system. Approximately 2,000 hazard wire down orders. Approximately 1,400 customers out are impacted in Chagrin Falls. Thought we're out of the woods, and 2 weeks later, December 1st, we had the nice wet snow, started on the 1st, continued for another day or so. At the end, we had approximately 190,000 customers out, 3,500 hazard wire down orders, approximately 2,400 people out are impacted in Chagrin Falls. And the number may sound a little high, and I'll explain a little bit more about that a little bit later. And I think at the end of the day, most areas I talked to had 2 feet plus of snow up in those areas. That's a lot of snow. So part of this may lead into another question was asked. It's kind of how the community is fed, how they're served. We have a Washington substation, which sits in the middle of the village. The Washington sub has 2 feeders to it, one from the northeast, which is Mayfield, and one from the southwest, which is Northfield. On the 1st, both of those we call sub-transmission circuits that supply the Washington substation were off. Both lines were affected by heavy damage with regards to trees. The Washington sub went down around 7 a.m. on the 1st. We managed to get one supply line back up, and then that was about 2:40 that day on the 1st. Then we lost that again in the evening on 12/1. So the first one was a tree. We got one tree cleared out, and as soon as, not too long after that, a few hours later, another tree came down on the same line. As it snowed, it continued to snow. Things continued to develop. Customers continued to be without electricity. So Mayfield had a large tree. As the tree cleared, it was restored. Part of that is it just takes a lot of time, especially in the rural areas, to find where the damage was at, especially the Northfield. A significant portion of that circuit goes cross country down to Northfield. And when you're talking a couple feet of snow, it takes a while. One thing to point out, there was an additional storm on November 1st. And according to our records, we had a little over 100,000 customers impacted throughout CEI. And it looks like less than a dozen Chagrin Falls were impacted. Chagrin Falls customers, residents, were impacted on that November 1st storm. So that's pretty much what happened. You're looking for something additional questions on that?
Is that part, are we good on that part so far?
I have a question.
is most of the service to the Chagrin Valley proper area, is that all above ground lines? Are there any underground electrical lines?
Well, throughout the distribution circuit, there are underground. For the most part, I don't know an exact percentage. If I had to guess, I'd say 98% is above ground.
All right.
That's my guess. It's mostly above ground. Most everywhere is pretty much similar, unless you get into a city. Some downtown areas or in a larger city, a lot of it's underground.
Can I ask something, Aaron?
Yeah.
Were we hit in this area harder than other areas, or were on both of these occurrences, was this fairly similar, or was a fairly similar experience had by other, like Chardon and different areas around us, or was this unique to our area?
That's a good question. The windstorm, if you remember I remember when that came through, I was looking at my rear window and all of a sudden, boom.
Yeah.
That stretched from up north all the way down through into Summit County, maybe even a bit further. So everybody got hit pretty hard with that. And again, some areas a little more than others, but for the most part, everybody got hit pretty bad. The snowstorm, further north you went, the worse it was. Now, with regards to, I handle eastern Cuyahoga County and all of Geauga County. All of that got bombarded.
Okay.
Myself being somewhat new in the position, I
Welcome.
got a little baptized.
No belt. Okay. But we were not unique in that it's just where the weather hit.
Within that quarter from, let's say, Solon, Twinsburg, all the way up through to the lake, you're not unique, no.
I have another question. Is there any way we can get accurate information out to the residents? Let's take the snowstorm on the 1st for an example. The power went out sometime late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, and we didn't know what it would take for the power to come on. I didn't get my power back on until Thursday. It came on sometime while I was sleeping. The house was about 34 degrees. I could have gone to a motel had I known it was going to be 3 days, but I kind of sat in the dark at any minute hoping that the power would come back on. I don't expect you to be able to, accurately predict when these guys out in these trucks are getting everything hooked up again. But is there any way we can kind of communicate the severity of the outage and when we can expect power?
Well, your concern, you're not alone in your concern. Heard that from many officials, many different communities. Generally speaking, if you're familiar, when you call in with an outage, the system will give you an automated restoration time. It's generally probably 3 hours to start with. Those are generally smaller events, isolated events. This was so large, it became quite difficult. Past 2 storms, a lot of people, we call it the estimated restoration time. Usually we have that pretty quick, what you're asking for. I was surprised myself that it sometimes took a day to 2 days to get that. And even with that, what we were able to provide was, and this went to the community leaders, some folks in your community would have got an email blast from me with an update probably twice a day. And usually we had to default to worst case scenario. So the storm in the 1st, your power should be on by, it was Thursday at 11 o'clock at night. Well, if this is only Tuesday, that's quite a ways out. So we try to communicate that through emails to the local officials, through our website, through social media. The news is pretty good, but I don't know if they do restoration times quite. They'll say it may take the end of the week to get those on. With that said, when the storm gets so severe, there's so many people out, and it's something I'll get into here in a moment. As far as the overview of the restoration process, what we do, first of all, that's when safety, I'm sure it doesn't surprise anyone. Safety is the largest concern. And we want to try to get out there and restore everything as quick as possible. With that said, we're only going to do it as quickly as the safe work practices allow. So what we first look at is any known hazards that are out there. I mentioned how many lines down we had, and you may have seen this. If you haven't, don't have it on your website, there's a little brochure that we have, tips for managing through a power outage. And it's what it says in here, and it's basically what we follow. We look for down wires, hazards. We need to get those cleaned up, make things safe for residents, vehicles, traffic, you name it. So we need to get those hazards cleaned up and make things safe until repairs can be made. Then we go down and give priority to hospitals, police, fire departments, other critical facilities. Moving on down, and it's not exactly in that order. Some of it will move back and forth because it's fluid. Repair transmission lines, substations, sub-transmission lines, power to the local system. Then we make repairs, restore the largest number of customers, the fastest way to restore all customers. And unfortunately, if it's a customer, if it's maybe just you're that affected, one or two people, it's probably going to be towards the end of the total restoration process. Again, we'll try to get, it's our responsibility as utility to get as many people back on as quickly as possible. So you're going to go for the big numbers, the large circuits. So as we get into this, what we need to do is get people out there and assess the damage. There's so much damage, it's taken a day or more to get out there and even assess it. And then as far as an individual house, residence, until we get there and somebody looks at it to see what's needed, it may be a couple of days as we get moving through the process. So to answer your question, we do get something out there. I don't know if it's been communicated to you. It is on the website. We can always improve on our communications. We're always looking for suggestions. With that said, in these larger events, a lot of times what we were giving is, say, the Thursday. It might not have been as helpful as some would like, but at least it lets you know if you're, say, Tuesday, and we're letting you know might be Thursday. It could be sooner, but at least worst case, you may need to go somewhere for a couple of days, depending upon your situation. Do you look on our website at all by chance?
I haven't. And there's a problem with the power outage. Typically, you have to use cellular power for your laptops or your tablets to be able to go to websites. And,
right.
Everything's kind of out of whack, but.
I agree, yeah.
Who from our team gets those emails?
Bill.
Bill, Rob?
I will look. I know the mayor does, and
I
I'll
do.
have to look at the distribution sheet. Rob, a few others.
Okay.
Aaron, can I ask, so in this communication, I know we did receive those updates. You're saying maybe twice a day, and they were posted, the mayor posted them on his social media page as well as posting them on our website. But my question is, does First Energy have a contact that we can reach out to, or do we have to wait for you to send it to us? Like, do we, during that kind of an outage, or do we just wait to get an update? Is it a two-way communication, or we just wait for an update?
You never have to wait.
Okay, so
It's my, allow me to introduce myself, Dean Hain. I am your liaison, so yes.
Okay. We can always call you, and
yes.
you would be able to find out if we need information to go out. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I mean, obviously, during that kind of situation, First Energy is very busy, but it would be the best way for us to reach all of our residents if we weren't receiving information, to get the information directly from you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and unfortunately, with a large event, it's still going to take a while.
Okay.
And as far as, say, if you called up with needing some specific information for a given resident, chances are I may not have that right
No,
away.
yeah, but for a large scale, you wouldn't.
Large scale, and yeah, it was interesting to me. I'd be on the phone mostly all day, and as you're on that phone answering a concern like yourself, you'd have 2 or 3 calls going to voicemail. And it was that way from 6 in the morning till 9 or 10 at night.
Of course.
So should you need to call and I don't pick up, please leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Okay, thank you.
And or an email, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the infrastructure that we have in the village, like especially that substation we have on East Washington? I mean, obviously I sent you those comments from a resident who had heard the Elm Street one, I guess, exploding. But more, I guess, the substation on East Washington, some people believe it's old. Like, can you give us a little bit of information about that unit? Or
The Washington substation, it's what we call a 4 kV substation, 4 kilovolts. We don't build those substations today. This one went into service in the 1960s. That's not unique in the CEI system. There's a lot of them out there that are that old, or maybe even a little bit older.
Is that normal in the entire country? Is Cleveland sort of just looking at older infrastructure as a region versus the entire?
I can't answer that directly. I don't know that we look at, I'm sure some people in our group look at other areas to see what they're doing. When I started looking at this, something came to my mind about it. Just kind of like on a car or anything else these days is a lot of us say, quote, they don't make things the way they used to. So just that it's old doesn't mean it's not any good. A lot of the older stuff works just fine. Not to say that we're not going to look at some time replacing it. I know right now there's no plans to. It works fine. Kind of leads into some other things. Our substations, we go in there at least once a month and take a look at it. Depending on what the part is, depends on how often it gets looked at. We use thermovision, infrared to scan things and look for poor connections. Something that could be failing might have a hot spot that's getting warm. You might not see it to the naked eye. We do fluid test. It's a pretty thorough analysis done at least once a year in that substation. So it's, to some extent, it's a good analogy. It's kind of like your car. You do maintenance on it every so often. You get it checked out by a mechanic. If you see something starting to go wrong, you replace it ahead of time, hopefully before it breaks. Sometimes with mechanical, electrical equipment, sometimes you don't get much warning. But to go in and say, I think to just replace it off the bat would be, it wouldn't be a good investment right now. And I just say that because it seems to be working fine based on the data that we have. And when we look at the outages, say the past couple of weeks, past month, mostly all tree related. I got a couple of statistics here if I can just find them. We're looking at data that's available to compare communities. Well, we don't really compare communities to us. You can compare Shaker, anybody else. It's sort of irrelevant. We look at your circuit. How is it performing? How is it performing compared to last year? Is something unusual happening that didn't happen before? Every circuit, every location, they come in and out of different. The circuits themselves are not unique to your municipality. They weave in and out of different localities. They have different geography, different demographics. The storms that go through there may be different. You could get hit harder down here than up north. So it's kind of hard to putting two together and comparing something really doesn't do a whole lot for you.
So how do we compare to ourselves year over year, looking at the last 5 years? Are we seeing any changes? Are we seeing more outages? Because from an anecdotal resident standpoint, I feel like we see more brownouts, we see more flickering power experiences. And then of course, within the past month, residents up near on the street that Jim lives on have had about 6 days without power, which, I've been here over a decade and I've never experienced these long outages. So I'm just curious how our data, if we can really look at ourselves, how does that data work?
From what people tell me throughout the CEI system, pretty much Ohio itself, the storms that we've had, especially the snowstorm, is something we haven't seen in 10 years or longer. It's not, we just don't see it. So to plan for that, to some extent, it's kind of hard to do. We do training, do prep work, but you just don't have enough employees. And as you probably know, we start planning a few days ahead of time, not knowing for sure exactly what's going to happen. We have our own meteorologists that tell us what they think is going to happen. And we start putting calls out to other utilities or sister utilities, electricians, third parties, to try to get people in here ahead of time. And a lot of times they can't come ahead of time. But we bring in a lot of help to help in those situations that are unusual or large events to try to get those restoration times down lower. Now, when I quote here, I'm going to say like an outage. When I say an outage, what's recorded in our system is generally, it's called a sustained outage, 5 minutes or longer. And we'll talk about those flickers here in a second.
Okay.
So without major storms, so far year to date in 2020, approximately 2,900 customer interruptions versus a 5-year average of 4,600. So the average is 46. Year to date this year is like 29. So far, without the storms, large storms so far this year, and there's some of those earlier in the year as well. But on average, without the major storms, we are 2,900 versus the average of 46. So we're actually down. With those interruptions, 83% were associated with tree-related issues. 8% were line failures. If you look at adding the major storms, year to date, we have approximately 14,000 customers interrupted, and that can be a little misleading because when, say, this past outage, where a circuit came back on, another tree fell and went back off, those numbers sometimes get counted twice. So that's where I myself, when I go to the engineers for data, we have to sift through it and what does it really tell us? What are we really looking at? But if you look at that average year to date with the storms, the 5-year average is 6,800 versus the 14,000. So the storms hit us hard this year. It's not usual, more than double the average as far as interruptions when you look at the storms. Out of what we've seen for these interruptions, 56% tree related, 22% equipment, 10% line failure. And when I say equipment, that still could be with the snow or wind, knocking something down, hitting our cross arms. Sometimes when something gets hit, it may be 3 or 4 spans down, the vibration knocks it loose. So majority of it this year is storms. So kind of going back to like some things, why don't we replace them? If we're not seeing that they're causing issues right now, we don't see a need to replace it. It seems to be working pretty good. Now, with that said, if you have residents or pockets where people feel differently that something's happened, we can address it and take a little closer look at it.
Can
We're
you?
always willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, so we definitely on Summit Street, which is on the northern end of the village, that area, that section of town was hit incredibly hard with the 2 back to back. I mean, 2 weeks apart, but you know, when you stock your fridge, it kind of feels back to back.
Yeah, and from a company standpoint, I guess as well, we'd like to, unfortunately, we can't control Mother Nature. I know people really don't like to hear that, but we don't have control over that. We try to be prepared to help deal with her, but in these larger storms, it becomes difficult. Right,
but from a community standpoint, I mean, our emergency plan kicks in at 72 hours post, you know, beginning of the event.
Mm-hmm.
Things I've learned since I've been on council. And so our residents have this window of time where they do have to be self-sustaining, but they turn to their local community for help and support. So, you know, while I understand that you can't prevent storms from happening, I guess my hope is we can also maybe adjust a little bit and talk about how do we stabilize this stuff? Like, what can we do? Because I mean, 6 days without power in a matter of couple of weeks is like, it's kind of unsustainable. Plus add in the pandemic and schooling and all this kind of stuff. It's, you know, I've got a lot of very stressed residents and I'd like to find some way to help them understand what happened here.
Well, I think I hopefully explained what happened, and we can always continue these conversations going forward and see what we can do. I will say, you are not alone in your concerns. Every community that I deal with has concerns, and it's about 35 to 40 communities from our first, the CEI level as well as first energy level, corporate level. Trying to think of an analogy, but this is a concern. And we are looking at, we learn every storm, we learn something new. How can we do things better? What can we do better? There's always that, debriefing at the end. And those things are going on right now at higher levels than me, and what to look at, especially with our operations folks, and what we can do to address your concerns, residents' concerns. We don't want them to be out. We don't want people to be cold. I can empathize. I don't want to be cold either. Yeah. So I don't have an answer for you today. I can guarantee you that we're looking into it and be happy to continue conversation with you to see what we can do or let you know what we think we can do.
So what I'm hearing is that this was not a substation issue, that this was really about trees coming down on lines onto both of our feeder lines, both from the northeast and the northwest. And that, correct?
If you want to look at root cause, yes. Root cause would be the storm, whether it be the wind or the snow, And I'm sure you've seen that the trees out there with all the snow on them, how those things bend over and come down. I lost a couple in my yard. Not that's an excuse, but then when you have that out there and you've got 2 feet of snow or more, and our workers have to go out there, safety is an issue. We can't go running through there. You've got lines down in 2 feet of snow that you can't see that could be energized.
Right.
I think we can all share that safety is important. So that unfortunately slows us down a little bit in an event like that. But again, our goal is to see what we can do in those situations to reduce those restoration times.
Hey, Dan,
Go ahead, Brian.
quick question. You mentioned the Sugar Falls is fed by 2 directions. Is that normal for each community to have 2 feeds? If not, do communities have 3 feeds or 4 feeds? And again, if that's possible, is there anything in the work to get Chagrin 3 feeds?
Well, I say that one substation, Washington, that has 2 feeds from it. You're also, another larger set of customers is fed from the Norway sub, which is on the east, your eastern community or residents. The Norway sub is over in South Russell, going out Bell Street.
Right.
That's those 2 substations are a majority of the customers, and some of the on the like the southwest side, there may be some from another substation, but it's very few, probably less than 100. So when you say normal, nothing's really normal. It just depends a lot of times how communities grow through the years, what's needed, what their electrical demand is, what their needs are, and we try to fulfill that demand. That's over 100 years, or maybe not quite that much, but what you have there as far as at the Washington substation is, I'll back up and say, it is not necessarily normal or abnormal, but it's an ideal situation to have a backup feed. Not the Norway sub doesn't have that. So this sub, the Washington sub, does have a backup feed, which I don't know the numbers, but it's probably, and it depends how large it is, but it's usually the ideal situation to have a backup. It is very unusual for both leads to go down at the same time. Highly unusual. But the snowstorm we had is highly unusual as well.
Andrew, you had some questions?
Yeah, so my question was kind of it's a 2-part question. So the first question is, the repairs that are done to get the power back on, in the imminent future, are those temporary repairs? Are they then gone back over? And then the second question is, the secondary responders from either out of state or third-party contractors, are they double checked? Are those repairs double checked? Because I saw a lot of out-of-state repair, which is good to see, more people working on it. But I was just wondering if those are double checked or gone over and checked at a later date after, things kind of settle down.
First part, yes and no. It's both. Some depend. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Depending on what, sometimes we'll go through and make some. Again, the goal is to get people back on as soon as possible. Sometimes we'll go through and do what we have to do to get them back on, and we'll come back and move on to something else, get some more people on, and then come back later and make some permanent repairs, excuse me. And that's usually, when I say permanent, it's probably after things start settling down. And we're still doing that now in some areas. As far as people from out of state, a lot of them should be our workers. A lot of them are our contractors, subcontractors that work for us today. Maybe they're not seen as much on a given day. We have some that we contract with locally in the state, some pretty big outfits that we rely on. As I say, they do some of our regular work when we don't have enough to keep up. With that said, I'm not real close to that piece, but I do know that the people that do come in, we look at their training they've had, their certifications they've had, and they're matched up with jobs appropriately. Now, with that said, I have seen, I had a call the other day from the county, and they showed me a picture of something which was built, and it's not acceptable. I don't know if it's a guy wire from the pole out towards the road, so the guy wire's like a foot off the edge of the road. I'm hoping that was temporary, but I don't know yet.
Bill, you
So
had,
ideally, this stuff should be reviewed and
okay.
go right ahead.
Bill, you had some questions?
Dean, I just would say one thing. Those temporary outages, even if they're for milliseconds, can really screw up your electronics. And with more and more people working from home, I wouldn't negate those momentary disruptions in power becoming a huge issue with people and aggravation. And I know that for me is as much as an aggravation as being out of power for several hours. If I'm out for 30 seconds and I have to reboot everything, it's really very maddening, and I wouldn't negate that as a major concern.
I agree, and thanks for bringing it up, because I mentioned that earlier that I would get to that, and it kind of slipped my mind so far. Especially with everyone working home this year, like you said, kids at home doing either parents working from home and or children doing online schooling. Yes, I've had a lot of calls from customers being upset. And I'm not sure if everyone realizes what happens or why that's that way. Is it's usually reclosures or breakers in the system that we have set. Let's say a branch, these devices sense a fault. And when they sense a fault, they'll open up, meaning stop the flow of electricity. And then they'll close back in to say, well, maybe that was a branch and it's cleared the system, it's out of the ground, and it's okay now. So then it turns the power right back on to see if that fault is cleared. If it wouldn't have done that, it may have ended up being a permanent outage then, where we've had to call somebody out in a truck to go out and go down the line and make sure everything looked good before we put the breaker back in or put a fuse back in or reset the recloser. Well, in this case, it wouldn't have been a recloser. So these reclosers and breakers that we use to go off and come back on are an event to avoid more long-term outages. Now, it's kind of a no-win, unfortunately. I was just talking today with some folks, a gentleman that I work with, something he's getting his mother for Christmas. Her concern is she's concerned about the power going out, but what happens is the cable box, similar to a computer, goes out, has to reboot, and it's 20 minutes for that thing to reboot. He's buying her a uninterruptible power supply. Well, it's a battery backup. That if the power goes out, and I think just for that little thing, it's $40. $40 is $40. I'm not saying it's not much money. But if there are things that people can do to help mitigate that. Not saying from a utility standpoint, we just ignore it. We put these devices in to avoid the longer term outages, the sustained outages. But then if we look at what usually causes these momentary outages, and majority of the time it's tree limbs coming down. As you know, we may or may not know, we have cycles for our patrols on our lines, whether it be for vegetation and or just looking for maintenance that we have to do. The vegetation management cycles are every 4 years. Looking at just what's going in and out of the Washington sub, that circuit is up to be trimmed coming up here 2021. And I'm sure we're probably going to try to get that on sooner rather than later. So what we're seeing there right now is probably as much growth as what you're going to see.
A lot of that got knocked down a couple of weeks ago.
I hope so. I would like to say it's all
the
done.
other thing, maybe if I could get you to speak to, is brownouts. We had a couple of brownouts in the last year, and they're the ones that are really the most potentially expensive to the average homeowner. If you aren't home and you don't know what to do, like go around and unplug all your electric motors, it can cause a lot of damage if they're trying to kick on and they burn themselves out because there's not enough juice to kick on. So that's been somewhat of an ongoing problem in Chagrin over the recent past. I don't know what's causing that and what can be done about that, if anything.
Now, I apologize. I know internally we don't use that term too often. I haven't heard it that much. So when you say brownout, is like one of our three phases out?
That's what I am, yes, that's what I'm referring.
When you lose one of the two legs.
Yeah.
So you get like 120 volts only to half your house. So large appliances like your oven or your, dryer may
Well,
not
more
be
concerned would be freezers, refrigerators, anything with a motor that doesn't have enough juice to kick over and kick on will burn up because there's juice going through it.
And
And
it can impact our municipal services too, like substation, like our lift stations for the sanitary system.
that would be
Correct.
one,
Yep.
for example.
It's, traffic lights, things like that.
Correct.
So what I've looked into that a little bit closer, I don't have a direct answer for you on that. I haven't heard of those too much. I've heard of what we call phasing, and it depends on what the problem is. A lot of times it's a carpool accident. What we can help do to prevent it or recommend people purchase to prevent protection in their house. I know my previous life, commercial industrial, all those customers would buy protection as you may have on a lot of those pumping stations where if it sees the legs out, it just shuts everything down so that nothing does get damaged because those motors get expensive. Now, with that said, things in our home are expensive as well. A little different scale, but.
Yeah, if you could circle back with me and then I'd be happy to share that information with the council because I know the brownouts are, they're problematic for us.
Okay.
And any other recommendations that you might have for what consumers can do to help protect themselves for those loss of a single leg or the brownouts or the short-term power interruptions. I mean, the UPSs are always great, but any other recommendations on how they our residents can be better prepared for things?
Dean sent me 2 PDF documents that I shared with Christy, and we're going to get them up on the website tomorrow. I got them late this afternoon, and I didn't want to rush Christy this afternoon since we had this meeting tonight. So we will get those up, and it covers a lot of those details. Do we have any other questions for Dean tonight?
Okay.
If I may, I'd just like to add a couple of things real quick. We were talking about earlier in outages, one thing I've noticed a lot of times, people aren't calling in to report their outage. And say if they're on a big circuit, we bring the circuit back on, they just assume their neighbor called in. And maybe they did, but then a lot of times we find we turn everything back on, that individual resident might have some damage right out front that we didn't know about. So I just encourage, if you have a link on your website, it may be the information that you link to. If you go to our website, we've got tons of information out there. Encourage residents to look at it. And yet just always call in the outages. Can't emphasize that enough. And there's some available tools available to residents. If they do sign up for some services we have, they can just either use their phone or get information, get callbacks as far as updates on when their power is to be restored, provided we have that information. As I said, a larger storm is sometimes delayed.
Okay. And then can you send me some of the data that we went over tonight, just so that I know people are going to be like, wait, what was that data? And I'd love to have it. If you have some notes, you can email over.
Okay, see what I can get.
Awesome.
Anything else?
Any last minute questions? Otherwise, I think we should continue to have these conversations as we try to understand the brownout rolling issues. And then I don't know. It was a lot to digest. So I appreciate you coming prepared.
Sure, it's going to take a while, and I'd encourage the city, if you hear of any of those things, have a representative, whether it be Rob or someone, residents are raising a concern if something just happened. The sooner we know about it, the better, so we can have somebody look at it. And okay, thank you.
If people want to send any follow-up questions they have that come to them, like while they're sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning worrying about the world, I will consolidate them, send them an email, and get you guys answers. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Okay.
That now concludes the mayor's report.
Woo! I'm going to need
Okay,
to plug my tablet in.
Yeah, well, I think I now have the longest standing record for the mayor's report, 55 minutes.
Okay. In what will be, I'm sure, a very long report, Mr. Bloom reported.
I have no report tonight.
And then My understanding is we do not have any members who have asked to speak to legislative items, correct?
Oh, correct. We have none.
Okay. And then we come to Mr. Markowitz. Report of the lobby.
Thank you. Pretty hard to follow those two acts, particularly the one about the chief. I did want to add one thing. The chief and I spent a lot of time this year dealing with some very, very difficult policy decisions about use of force. It's a very, very difficult legal area. She handled it extremely well, did a great job. I'm really proud of her. She did a lot of background research. She taught me a lot. So sometimes you don't get to appreciate how good she is at things because you don't see it on console so much. But she well deserved that. And I thank Jason for getting that put together. And I don't care what she says. She deserved it.
Here, here, Dale. I second everything you said.
Okay. So let's go to the mundane legislative docket.
Oh,
The
it's not
first item,
mundane this week.
yeah, that's true. The first item we have is ordinance number 2020-53, an ordinance amending the position classification and salary schedule for various positions within the Village of Chagrin Falls and declaring an emergency.
Okay, Mr. Wyville, admin and comp, reviewed this.
Yeah, thanks. So essentially, this is a pretty standard process. We're looking at the schedule for the positions within the village, and I think if you look at the detail in your packet, you'll see there's quite a bit of it, just talking about each full-time employee and the salaries and the range. This came up in a conversation that's an fairly annual, not fairly, is an annual, but fairly standard process of what people will call cost of living increase. So the mayor, I know, did a lot of research in the surrounding communities just to see what they were doing, to see if we are on par with what's happening with our neighbors and how we're staying competitive in the environment that we're in. So it was recommended that we look at a 2% cost of living increase for the folks that are full-time employees of the village. So that essentially is what we're here to discuss. And I don't know if anyone's shared their screen to put up the information that's in great detail, or if we just want to talk about it.
Darren, I would just say two things. I did check today and confirm South Russell's at 3%, as is Pepper Pike and Orange. All the rest of the communities around the 2% level, which is what my recommendation is. So we're keeping our salary schedules at or below the surrounding communities, and our overall schedule and benefit package is competitive, which is what we want it to be.
I mean, I think the question that people will have, I suppose, I don't want to plant any thoughts in anyone's heads, but it's a tough time right now financially, obviously. But staying competitive in the workforce right now, especially with the valuable people that we've got, all of them, it's worth considering whether we should take this what again would be pretty standard. In fact, in most years, Mayor, you could probably have better frame of reference than I do, but generally 3% is about the number. So it isn't quite the cost of living bump that it was, I guess, standard, and it's happening around us, but it's something.
Yes, I think that's correct. It's basically the cost of living in Cleveland, exclusive of food and energy, through November or through October, I believe, is 1.6%, and we're just basically at that. Overall, our compensation increase is 1.9%. So when you figure in the November, December inflation, we'll be about at that. Each 0.1% of increase is just over $4,000. And I was very concerned about whatever the percentage is. You don't spend a percentage, or you don't take a percentage to the grocery store. You take dollars, is where our dollars were. And our tax revenues for 2020 are just about flat with 2019. The income tax is down just under $90,000 from fiscal 19. The property tax is, of course, about the same, up a little bit. And our gasoline tax is up just about $100,000, which makes up for that. So our overall income is largely flat. We have deferred a lot of expenses and not done some things that we would have liked to do, but weren't essential. And so we're coming in overall under budget around, I think it's $200,000-300,000. I forget the exact amount, but that's the range. And again, I want to emphasize that most of that is deferrals, not things that we don't ultimately have to do. But I think the 2% range is where we want to be. It's affordable. I believe it's competitive with our surrounding communities and keeps our employee compensation at a competitive level.
Yeah, go ahead, Angie.
I'd like to apologize for our admin and comp meeting on this. As you know, if you watched or attended, was interrupted by my power and internet outage. So I was unable to speak to this at the meeting. But what I was trying to get across at that meeting after, when we got cut out, is my concern is revenue, which I know you just spoke to where we're at now in 2020. But do you have any, what are the projections for 2021, given the year we've gone through, and what's happening maybe with our central business district, which we know provides 50% of our revenues, as well as income from other, this is my concern, is what are we going to bring in, and should we be more cautious at this moment?
We've gone to Rita about a month ago, and we asked them about what we should project for income tax revenue. And Dave, jump in here because you're the one that actually spoke to them. If I get this wrong, but they said basically they would forecast the same revenue we got this year.
Really?
Yes. Flat. Keep in mind, Angie, that while the restaurants are hurting very, very badly, and the shops are, not doing, as well as they had, most of the revenue is income tax revenue and comes from offices.
True.
They have higher salary levels than the service employees we have. So and overwhelmingly comes from residents, not in the income tax, just income tax.
And I guess, do we know, I guess I don't know whether everyone here is doing well or not. And that's, I guess, where I guess no one can know, like, to make that projection.
No one can know. Right. We look at the tax revenue that's come in, and as of July, we were $800,000 down, and we look like we're going to finish the year. And I'm just speaking of income tax now.
Sure.
We're $800,000 down, 827, I think. And we're going to finish the year about $87,000 down. So the last part of the year, the collections have been very strong. And I think for, the early part of that, the August, September, there was probably some catch up. People didn't pay all their taxes, and that came in late. But basically, the amounts that we were collecting in, October, November for sure, ought to be recurring, and they've been fairly well. They've been good right on. So and again, Rita has forecast that we should use the same amount, and they have a much broader perspective than just we do. And again, nobody's going to know how this thing is going to play out. I mean, if you want to forecast of the virus mutates and becomes a killer and the vaccines are no effect, I mean, yeah, I mean, forget about it. But
no, I know.
Yeah, you just, I mean, it's all a known unknown. I think this increase that we have is affordable with the income that we have and with the anticipated revenue. And again, I think it's, when I feel we've got an obligation to employees too, as well to the taxpayers, to try to keep them and their purchasing power whole, because they've had a tough year along with everyone else too, and I think have done just an exemplary job, as witnessed the recent snowstorm. But I think that's the case, and we do have a $400,000 general fund reserve that we carry in the general fund that we've built up over the last 5 years that is available.
If we need that. Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think we're looking at, as we sit now, a collapse in any revenue. Should the revenue come in, down from what we did catch this year and what we're forecasting for next year, we do have cushion in terms of, other deferrable projects and, the reserve. So I don't think that we're in any trouble by giving this, and I don't think it's overly generous by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's fair to everybody concerned.
Okay, I know you have a very good handle on the numbers, and I guess that's my only, and I love the idea of prioritizing our people over things. I just want to make sure that we have a plan should our revenues collapse. So hearing about the $400,000 general fund reserve is good to know, that we have somewhere we could pull that money if we needed to, like if.
Yeah, we do. We have that. What I've strove to do is build up gradually a general fund reserve that would cover about 50% of our cash operating expenses over time. And that would allow us to make, orderly cuts to tie into the revenue. So we're not in a crisis situation where suddenly we can't, do the things that we have to do and provide the residents with the services they've become accustomed to. And I think we're in that position.
Okay.
So one of my biggest concerns is, again, these are all projections, and it's based on a pretty substantially turbulent year. So one of my biggest thoughts is we can push this off and leave it on readings, and let's get out of December and into the first of the year, and we'll have a whole year to look at. I do, and this is post dated to the 13th of December. So they'll take effect. Our employees, if we pass it in a month, our employees get a month's worth of lost revenue. Basically, the back pay will be paid up, and we'll have a full year. And
you're not going to know anything new in 30 days that you don't know today. You just vote on it today. You're not going to know anything more in 30 days.
Jim, Nancy, any thoughts on this?
No, well, we had our financial committee meeting this morning. Our numbers look solid. We don't have a crystal ball. I'm in favor of this pay increase to cover the cost of living increase, and I think the employees have earned it, and I want to show some support to them. And I don't think it puts us in any financial risk when you look at the real dollars it just comes to over the course of the year.
I'm not really quibbling with the substance of this, but I am concerned about this being emergency legislation and not having any readings on it. End of the year.
That's because we didn't have a meeting in November. This finance committee meeting or admin and comp meeting occurred in mid-November. I mean, you've had all of this in your hands for almost a month now.
Well, we have,
no new facts
but the readings are for the public, not us. We've had it, but the point of the readings is so that the public is more informed about things and has time to look at it.
Well, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, right.
We the administration did what we had to do, and then it's up to council, and council didn't have the meeting. So don't blame me.
Well, I mean, we didn't have a meeting the Monday of Thanksgiving, which has traditionally been canceled.
No, he's talking about admin comp meetings. He's talking about, they had the information to do the cost of living increase months ago. And we could have had an admin comp meeting to discuss it and have more council meetings to give it more readings, is what the mayor's saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I turned this over to admin and comp in, I don't remember, early November.
We had the meeting during the snowstorm. Yeah, so.
All right, well.
I mean, so I guess the other thing I would add from our budget meeting, that was this morning. It feels like a lifetime ago. My apologies. I mean, was when we look at the budget in 21, we obviously have some deferred purchasing that we had put off in 20 those requests will probably get moved to the 21 budget. And one of the things Rob has mentioned to me, was it in that meeting or just in a conversation, was that, we can also delay some of our purchasing of those major equipment items until after we see the tax returns,
Right.
which we usually see those numbers in May and June, so that we can factor that in before we purchase, and we can pull back if those numbers don't come back.
Right.
I guess personally, I feel like the employees do an exemplary job. I feel like they've, I feel like we should support them. I feel like they do support our community. So
it seems a little silly to say this, but revenues and budgets aside, and we obviously, they can't be put aside because they're critical to running the business of the village. But I think people that can't work from home, and a lot of us have the benefit of being able to work from home office when you have to be out in the public and working together, like a lot of the village employees do. I think there's some added, I don't know if I want to say risk, but there's some gratitude, I suppose, for having to go to work every day. I mean, I work from home.
right. Okay. So
I'd like to make a motion.
okay, Jim, you can make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules of 3 readings for this ordinance.
I have a motion by Newell, and I have a second by DiBernardo. Roll call, please.
Rube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
No.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyville.
Aye.
DiBernardo.
Aye.
Jim?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-53.
Motion by Newell. Do we have a
Second.
second? Second by Wyville. Roll call, please.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyville.
Aye.
DiBernardo.
Aye.
Rube.
Aye. Mr. Markowitz.
Okay, I lost my PDF. Hang on.
What?
Yeah,
You want me to read it?
Failure.
I was trying to email the chief with something, but I'm back. Okay. Okay, ordinance number 2020-54, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract with Cigna for healthcare insurance coverage for the employees of the village of Chagrin Falls, authorizing employee contributions for premiums, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Wyville, back to you.
You guys are going to work me over tonight. This one's a little bit easier. As you know, we reviewed our health plan, and those rates go up every year. The mayor and the rest of Dave and the team did a lot of research, and we have landed on a different provider. And this legislation is just to get the mayor to go into contract with Cigna. And unless I'm missing anything, that's pretty much it.
So I think you covered it all. It's a rather significant reduction from the quote that we'd received from Medical Mutual. This insurance is nearly identical to the other policy, the same doctors, the same drug formulary. They use the same drug provider, Express Script. Express Script is owned by Cigna. So we anticipate really the employees largely just needing to fill out the insurance and provide a new card. And I think it should be a very transparent, I couldn't get the word right, transparent change one from the other. And we've handed out the Cigna packages to everyone. We did hold a Zoom meeting for employees of what we were proposing to council. And we received no questions, no serious reservations about it. No, Dave, do you have anything that you want to add, or Amber or Rob? You're closer to the employees than I am, perhaps.
No, I think the important factor is that the network for the new company would be almost identical to the old one. So nobody will have the inconvenience of trying to find a new doctor or provider.
I think in the last session that we had discussed this, I think Angie, maybe you brought up the question that's important, which is, is the coverage similar? Do our people like the coverage they have now? And then it seemed that we weren't missing anything in terms of coverage, and the increase was substantially less than we were going to see from our then current provider, and what else was on the market. So I'm satisfied with the work that was done.
So is this a cost savings for the village, or is this just providing better or less?
No, it's about $100,000 savings to the village, reduction in premium.
Okay. I'm just making sure that I was reading that right.
Yes, no, you're reading it correct. And now you understand why we made the switch in carriers.
Yeah.
And then our healthcare, we have a healthcare reserve fund because this is a high deductible plan. I'm going to probably use the word wrong there.
No, you're using the correct term.
So
At the end of the year, when we get this last workman's comp rebate, we should have about 180 some thousand in the reserve. And in that schedule I gave you, you can see that we're fully reserved for any extraordinary expense year. And we're projected this year as high as last year. So we're fully reserved.
So what will our employees' deductible be? Because I know we pay a portion of it. What's the
we pay a portion of it. The deductible, Rocky, is $2,000 to the employee.
Okay, got it. Now, do we offer any, then this is just a really weird question, but do we offer any incentive if they're willing to go to a $4,000 deductible or anything like that?
How this plan works is they've got a $2,000 deductible, and we make a payment to them to their HSA.
Okay.
That they then are responsible for the first $2,000 of the deduction. The next $4,400 of expense is the village's, and then it's anything over $6,400 is the insurance. So it's a split that way, of which we have built up as we sit here tonight $135,000 reserve fund, money in the bank. We will be getting, I think is it an $80,000 projected check, Dave, from Workman's Comp? What's the last check?
It's actually about 120,000.
All right, that's what we're proposing to put in that. Will take our reserves up to more than I think that we actually probably need. But I wanted to be conservative. Last year, we incurred an extraordinary high expenses. And it was, if we use the same numbers of expenses this year, it'd be $120,000, of which we have more than 100,000 already reserved. And how this works, a portion of the $100,000 savings in insurance reserve, I would transfer to the insurance reserve, so we keep that reserve at a more or less constant level. Obviously, if the employees have less medical expenses than we forecast, and we believe we forecast high, that we should even be in better stead. We offer wellness programs, and we offer other type of health programs. We're constantly looking at if there's ways that we can further incentivize them to utilize those plans. But I think that we have managed our costs well over the 5-year period of 2016 to 2021. Our health insurance costs have only increased 5%, 5.8%, I think, which is, just about in line with the overall inflation. And if you look at what medical inflation has been in that period of time, I think we've done an extraordinary job of managing those costs.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we're in a good spot with our reserve. I just wanted to call attention to the fact that we were, we did have the reserve to protect us against the additional exposure we see with the change in deductibles. And
yeah, so what we're seeing here is it's going to save the village money. The employees have a less out-of-pocket expense, and their deductible stays the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Making sure that.
Yeah, and we have to see what we get next year. I mean, because I think that this year, every year we've had to look at another health insurance but we've managed to stay ahead of it for 5 years and do pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's really what we've got to do. We look at this every year. I think CPI has done an outstanding job of representing us. And we've had a couple of hiccups, but largely been because the employees didn't understand something. But other than that, once we educate them, we haven't had any real pushback or complaints in the last 4 years that we've been on this system. It's worked quite well.
I've been very happy with it.
Do we have any other questions on tonight's legislation? I love you all, but we have a very long legislation. Yes. So I will move to suspend the rules for ordinance. Or no? Yeah, motion to suspend.
Second.
Motion by group, second by Newell. Roll call, please. Sorry.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval.
Aye.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye. Daryl? I'm going to make a motion to approve the ordinance for new healthcare 2020-54.
Second.
Motion by Newell, second by Rocky. Roll call, please.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval.
Aye.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Grube.
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky.
Aye.
Mr. Markowitz.
Next ordinance number 2020-55. It's an ordinance amending appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the Village of Chagrin Falls for the year ending December 31, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, so this is one of those fun with auditors pieces of legislation that we get at the end of every year. And this is telling the auditors, this is the maximum amount of money that we're going to spend in each of these accounts in the fiscal year 2020. Our numbers will come in below this, and we will be able to, if you want to look and reconcile the difference between this that we pass and what's in the final closed out budget of 2020, we can do that once 2020 is fully closed out. But this makes the state auditors happy, so we do this every December. Did I miss anything?
I think you covered it pretty well.
Okay. Do we have any questions or discussion on our final appropriations? Okay, seeing none, I am going to move to suspend for 2055.
Second.
Motion by group, second by Newell. Roll call, please.
Wyval. Wyval. Did Darren answer?
Yeah, aye.
Oh, I didn't hear. DiBernardo,
Aye.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
And then I move to adopt ordinance 2020-55.
Second.
Motion by group, second by Newell. Roll call, please.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank
Mr.
you. Next one. Ordinance number 2020-56, an ordinance to revise the codified ordinances by adopting current replacement pages and declaring an emergency.
So sometimes those kind folks down in Columbus change the laws that are a part of the Ohio Revised Code, and we sort of adopt these, we adopt groups of pages based on the new rules they make in Columbus. Like one of these is about only needing a rear license plate. So we do this every year, not to call our work housekeeping, but in this case, this is a fairly routine piece of accepting state laws into our local codes. Did I misstate anything there? Everyone agree with that?
That's correct.
Okay.
You have it right.
Okay, good times. Always good when I get it right. So do we have any questions about these pages?
I have one.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the 3 readings.
Second.
That's not a question, that was a motion. I have a motion by Newell and I heard a second by DiBernardo. Roll call, please.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval. DiBernardo,
Aye.
And does anyone want to make
Oh, motion to adopt.
Okay,
There we go.
motion to adopt by DiBernardo,
Second.
second by Rogoff. Roll call, please.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval, DiBernardo,
Aye.
Grube,
So
Next ordinance.
I
I'm
actually,
sorry, go.
I actually do have a question about that ordinance that we just passed.
The replacement pages? Or
The last one that we just did.
Replacement.
Will we actually get the pages that are going to be replaced? I know some of us, myself anyway, maintains that large book.
The same process every year, Nancy. We all get the green copies and replace them.
I'm sorry, I didn't remember whether we got them last year, all of us or not. So
Yeah, as soon as they're codified, the revisions will come out and they'll be given to all council.
Okay, Mr. Markowitz.
Ordinance number 2020-57, an ordinance amending the employee policy and procedure manual to determine part-time and full-time employment classification and declaring an emergency.
And Mr. Wyville, we are back to you again with all your legislation.
Big night.
Last one, I promise. Well, there is some need to get current with our classifications of our three really departments of full-time equivalent, part-time, and seasonal. So there was some language that was needed to be reviewed and was put in front of us by Rob and the mayor. And so really, it's just cleaning up some language for our handbook. And if you want to look into your paperwork there, you'll see that all of the maximum hours worked to classify you as part-time and as well as seasonal is in there. So it's just a matter of cleaning up the language.
Okay. And for those folks who don't always watch local government meetings, we generally do these policy book updates towards the end of the year, and we try to consolidate them just to make it easier for the reprinting of these policy booklets for the village administration.
Yeah, there weren't vast differences in what we were working with and what needed to be updated. So these are pretty minor changes. So that's about it.
Cool. Any questions? None.
Motion to suspend.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. I have a motion by Newell, second by DiBernardo. Roll call, please.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval,
Aye.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye. Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Newell, second by Wyville. Roll call, please.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval,
Aye.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
And then back to you, Mr. Markowitz.
Thank you. Next one is ordinance number 2020-58, an ordinance adopting a social media policy for the village of Chagrin Falls and amending the employee policy and procedure manual for social media and fraud reporting and declaring an emergency.
Ms. DiBernardo, communications.
Okay.
Do we have to amend this one because my name's on the top of it instead of yours?
I don't know, Mr. Markowitz, it says introduced by Mr. Rocky and it's introduced by me. Is that something that requires amendment on the document, or is that not part of the legislation, so it doesn't matter?
Right, it's not part of the legislation, so.
Amend it.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay, moving on. All right, so what you see here is a proposal for the social media policy for the village. And it's really in two parts. So the first part is a document that lays out the framework by which the village will set up, use, and deactivate social media accounts should they decide they want to do so. And it's based on a sample policy that was provided to us by the Ohio Municipal League earlier in the year that our communications committee tailored to what the village can manage with a small staff and for our small resident population. It allows 90 days for us to retroactively approve the already existing social media accounts, which at this point basically is the police department. The fire department, at least from our discussions, we think falls outside of our jurisdiction because it is a separate entity. It's the suburban department. Other than that, we don't currently have any official village social media accounts. We have 90 days to clear up the accounts that exist, and then any new accounts that are proposed will go through an application, a process, and the administration will get the chance to approve them if they want. The most important elements in it are a legal disclaimer that will be placed on any social media accounts associated with the village, rules for handling comments and posting, and maintenance procedures that will put us in line with public record law for social media that we have to follow. It also codifies the administration having passwords and access to all official online accounts that are being used to represent the village. So should someone that maintains a social media account no longer work for the village, our administration will still have access and control over those accounts. The second part is an amendment to the employee manual that addresses employees' use of social media. It's really mostly common sense guidelines, such as you can't use the village seal if you're promoting a private business where you go out and, you know, mow lawns. You can't, and when you put your opinions online, you have to state that they're your opinion and that you're not speaking officially for the village. And you also can't use your official title on a private social media account. The final element that's in this is the fraud policy, which is just an updated fraud policy, which basically gives the rules for notification to our employees of the Ohio fraud reporting system. And that would be put into our manual as well. And that's everything. Questions?
So that was easy to understand, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. It's a very, the communications committee has been working on this for about 6 months. So Andrew and I both have a pretty decent understanding of it. If you guys have any questions.
It started with like 120 pages.
Yeah, and we've gone through it with Dale. You know, the OMLA policy was basically, you know, this gigantic document that applied to, you know, things as large as Columbus down to things that are very tiny. And we basically tried to pare it down to what works for us.
No, I think you guys did a great job. I think you explained it very well. It's just it's a big, meaty topic. And
Yeah.
I think that you took logical bites, you created some streamlined options and use of social media. Should it be decided to adopt it? Should we decide to adopt using it across the board more? I think you did a great job.
One thing to note is this does not force any department or any portion of the government to create a Facebook page or any social media account. All it does is give them the ability to, if they choose to.
And it tells them how, if they want to do it, it should be done and what disclaimers should be located on the page. So if somebody wants to set it up, it's basically a framework. And I know that's still a large discussion that we have as whether or not we would want to go into this business or not. This is just basically getting us in a position. If we want to do it, the research is done.
Is there any reason it needs to pass tonight?
I think the fraud policy is something that we want to get into place, and that's part of this legislation. The social media policy, there's no rush, but they are bundled together because it's in the employee manual. So
I guess it's the first time that I've had a chance to, I mean, I started going through it and my eyes got watered over. You know, I guess I understand you two have been working hard for 6 months on it, but it's the first time that you present anything to council on this scope or this subject. So I guess I would like to have a little better understanding than your well done summary that you just presented.
Okay.
Well, I'm certainly I'm happy to, you know, answer any questions, and but I do understand I absolutely understand your point of wanting to have a little more time to work through it. If that's the case, I don't know if we need to, Erin, this would be a question for you. Do we need to sever the fraud piece out or not?
Yeah. What is our consequence for leaving them both on readings as a pair?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
No, just so you know, the fraud policy, this just puts it in writing and puts it in the employee policy. We're already operating this way.
Okay. We don't have to pass that either immediately.
Yeah, the employee notice that this refers to is already being given to every new employee, just as it states in here.
Okay, so we just go into the new manual.
Right.
Okay.
It just puts it in writing in there.
Well, I'm happy to leave it on readings, Erin, if that I know it is a lot of information for people to absorb in one reading. So that
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions on this that we can answer tonight so that we can?
Sure.
Come on, not all at once, not all at once. Okay, so if you do have questions, take some time and read this and then reach out to Angie, and I feel like has done a really good job of creating this basic framework without putting any onerous onto the administration for forcing them into social media use at this point. So well
All
done,
right.
committee.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Someone's got to say it. This
What?
remains on readings.
Oh, this remains in readings. My apologies. Ordinance 2020-58 will remain on readings. We will pick that up again in January. Please reach out to Andrew DiBernardo if you have questions. Okay, council committee reports, administration and compensation.
Haven't you heard enough from me tonight?
Good luck.
I have nothing other than the current docket to report on.
Arts Commission,
No report tonight.
Board of Zoning Appeals,
No report tonight.
the Cemetery Commission. We got the new columbarium and I shared a video of them lifting it off of the flatbed truck with a really big crane in the middle of a snowstorm and placing it directly onto the foundation. It was the most amazing thing I had ever seen. And we were standing in the cemetery as there were creaking branches that were snapping around us. It was petrifying and amazing at the same time. And many kudos to the service department and Rob Arnold, especially the cemetery sexton, who sort of coordinated the delivery of that piece. We've already sold units in it and more are for sale. So communications,
Oh, just tonight's legislation.
facilities and services.
No report.
Finance committee met this morning. You can catch us on YouTube. It was very exciting. Parking, Mr. Newell.
Oh, I didn't hear you. No report.
Parks Commission,
No report.
planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning meets next Monday, December 21st at 7 o'clock on Zoom.
Okay. Safety committee.
Congratulations to Chief Dasek, but that's the only thing.
Streets and utilities.
No report tonight.
Gosh, you guys are just such long talkers, so long-winded. Okay. Report of the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Jamison.
Thank you, Madam President. Just two quick things. First, the loose leaf collection from the fall concluded for the year. So if there's any additional leaves that residents want disposed, please bag those or place in your trash receptacle. Leave the bags next to your trash receptacle and Kimball will pick them up on your trash day. Also, a lot of people have been starting to show interest in calling about the storm debris that fell due to the heavy snowstorm on December 1st. We will be starting one round of loose limb collection out at the curb throughout the village, starting this Wednesday on the 16th. So we got that word out last week. Please have all your material brought out to the curb by Wednesday with the trunk end of or the cut end of each branch towards the street, and we'll get everything chipped as quickly as possible. If you have any questions, please call the service department, 247-5053.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I have.
The report of the engineer, Mr. Lannon.
Wait, before we go on, Aaron, Rob, you want to say a couple words about the lateral lining on East Washington Street?
Sure, absolutely, Mayor. We're just issuing a press release now. The lateral lining of the sanitary sewers on the private side will begin within the next week or two. We had roughly 60% of the properties have responded favorably to our offer of lining the private laterals at the village cost as part of the project. And then the residents will be paying us back for that cost. We're going to be sending out reminder letters to the residents that we haven't heard from yet to try to encourage them to participate with a deadline of January 15th to hear back from them. The last block of properties from Ridgewood Road going out to Billy Campbell Boulevard, those initial letters with the details on the lateral lining cost will be mailed here this week. So we're getting very close to that work starting. The beginning part of that will be any of the lines that are block solid that need to be cleaned, heavy cleaned, and then the lining work will begin there. So letters with more information will be going out to residents explaining the coordination and scheduling of that work. If anybody has any questions, please call Village Hall and Dr. Christie or myself, and we'll get you the answers.
Good. Thank you, Rob.
Report of the engineer, Mr. Lannon.
No report, Madam President.
Can we do a quick little wrap up on East Washington. This sort of wrapped up since we last met. We're basically done for the season and we've delayed paving until the springtime, correct?
Correct, and there's no more underground work planned for this year. So the underground contractor is packed up and left town. There'll still be some lining work going on with minor road, minor lane closures, but traffic's maintained.
Okay, thank you. And then we expect the paving to happen once the asphalt plants open in the spring.
Correct, yes.
And we did that because we felt we'd get a better paving job and it would last longer. And
Right, and there's still a little bit of lining work to do. We didn't want the risk of a liner setting up before it was fully, before the pipe was fully lined. So there's a small risk that something could go wrong during the lining. We didn't have to go back and patch up the pavement after it was freshly paved. So
we appreciate that. Can you thank Lydia for a season of really stellar communication that we were able to share with residents, that they knew what was going on, and she did a great job.
Definitely will do.
Report of the police chief. Uh-oh, she ran away. Aw, there she is.
Okay.
I'm back. Sorry, I thought it was about to get loud at my house. Just real quick, again, thank you to everybody for the kind words. It embarrasses me a little bit, but I do appreciate it. I wanted to give you guys an update on our Shop with a Cop program. We had a kind of a modified version this year. We took 4 families, but we kind of all met out there and did our social distancing thing. But we were able to help 4 families on that day. And then we were also able to help 7 additional families just by providing them with gift cards for groceries and pizza. So 11 families total. And we still had a good time. Like I said, it was slightly different this year. The other thing we're going to be doing, which is new for us this year, but I was given the heads up by the JCs and Santa. A couple of us are going to participate in a drive by the hospitals with other police cars in Cleveland, the children's hospitals, on the 23rd. So I think we're going to have probably 2 cars participating in that. So we're looking forward to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the end of my report.
Well, thank you. A report of the fire chief, Mr.
I
Zubin.
have 2 items, Madam President. Just wanted to reiterate, nice job, Amber, on your award, well deserved. And we've had 3 members contact COVID and recover, and unfortunately had another one contact the coronavirus, and he is home quarantining with his wife, who also contacted it. So keep our department in your thoughts and prayers as we plow through this stuff. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Okay, members of the public to speak to any matter. We do have Deb Mayer did reach out in advance of the council meeting to speak to council, so we will move her over first. And as we're doing that, here is my boilerplate. Then Falls Village Council appreciates and values citizen comments during our meeting. The public comment section of our meeting limits each individual to 5 minutes. All comments should be directed to council. And we will start with Deb Mayer, who contacted us in advance. If other attendees in the Zoom platform would like to speak, you can use the raise your hand function and we will take people one at a time. Okay, Deb, go ahead.
Hi,
and please state your name and your address for the record. Sorry.
Hi, Deb Mayer, 100 American Street. I'm very nervous, but thank you for having me. I wrote something out in advance, so I'm just going to read from there, because this is not, even though I'm a teacher and I teach online every day, this is not my thing. So here I go. All right. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me time to speak. First, I want to dispel rumors on my motivation. I hear there have been many. This is not, nor will it ever be, political or self-serving. My motivation for this has been my father and all others of the Jewish faith. My father has taught me the importance of celebrating and embracing the Jewish faith and traditions, while also appreciating the traditions of Christmas. I love the Christmas decorations in town, as they are beautiful. I have always wished to see diversity in our community to be recognized during the holiday season. It seems as though it was also important to many others. I cannot begin to tell you just how much it means to me for the community to trust me to make this happen. I am so proud and grateful for all of those who contributed immediately to the cause. I feel it is important as a community that we welcome everyone and make everyone feel welcome. To all the visitors that come to see us, we want them to feel recognized. We want to be known as a community that includes and not excludes. Wouldn't it be fantastic to walk through Riverside Park and learn about a different celebration? Wouldn't it be fantastic to be known as the community who embraces diversity? I hope this new tradition becomes important to everyone. Thank you. I appreciate the time and stay healthy.
So thank you for coming tonight and for sitting through our excitingly long meeting. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, it was riveting.
It was, wasn't it?
Yes, and Chief David, congratulations, by the way. It's very well deserving.
So my understanding is that you're looking to place the menorah and dreidel display in the park in 2021, since we're sort of in the middle of Hanukkah right now. So the way that process would work is you would go through the park use application, and I think council can maybe clean up a little bit of those rules. We'll send that to facilities and services to maybe take a look at. And then you'll be able to use the parks, because parks are for everybody. Any other questions for us at this point? Otherwise, we'll be in touch as we get some stuff.
No, I just to have knowledge of the process and the timeframes that I have to adhere to would be fantastic. Just so I can make sure I meet those for next year.
Yeah, I just would anticipate making sure that you have probably paperwork by early summer, probably June-ish, because it helps everybody when we plan early in advance. So, but we'll be in touch. We'll help you. We'll communicate.
Okay, because where would that paperwork be available? Not just to me, but to other.
I'll reach out and get all that for you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you so much, Deb.
Thank you.
Do we have any other members of the public who would wish to speak to any matter? You hung in here for almost 2 hours. I'm not seeing any more hands. Christy, are you seeing any more hands?
No. No, I do not.
That's how we put you to sleep. Okay, seeing none, miscellaneous. Does anyone have miscellaneous items they would like to discuss? No. Okay. Our second regular meeting of December would be on December 28th. But I think we should maybe just go ahead and cancel that, since it's in the middle of the holiday end of year season, which would mean we have a organizational meeting Monday, January 4th, and then our regular meeting would be January 11th. Okay. Seeing no other items, last chance. Okay.
We have one item.
I do. Yeah, I just was giving everybody else a chance before I did my item. Okay. So at this time, then I move to go into executive session with all members of council, the mayor, the law director, the chief of police, the director of finance, and the chief administrative officer to discuss imminent litigation and legal claims with the law director.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by group, second by Rocky. Roll call, please.
Bernardo,
Aye.
Rube,
Aye. Oh, sorry.
He says aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval.
Okay. So council, you have a link from Mr. Markowitz that you will use. Council will reconvene only to adjourn, and no actions will be taken after the executive session.
So we're leaving this session.
You're leaving, going back to your email, there's a link
All right.
to the executive session. Go to that one. Everyone else, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, who's there?
Hold on, Jim. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. Give it one more minute.
For
Oh, I have a quorum here.
Motion to adjourn?
No, I think we have to motion to.
Oh, to come back into session.
roll call.
Motion to, how do you, a roll call first or?
Hold on. Dale, what's my motion here? Motion to return to the regular council meeting?
No,
No, we already done that.
you already did that.
Guys, just stop talking. Dale, do we need a motion to leave executive session?
You need a motion to reconvene in session now.
Okay, yeah. So motion to reconvene in regular session.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Groob, second by DiBernardo. Roll call, please.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Lackey,
Aye.
Rogoff,
She's not back yet.
We got a quorum.
Wyval.
Aye.
Okay, we have returned at 9:13 p.m. and I officially adjourned this meeting at 9:13 p.m. Thank you so much. We will see you in January.
Okay.